Welcome to Nevada Week. I'm Amber Renee Dixon, and this week we are on the road, coming to you from Clark County Fire Station 25. This is a working fire station, so the crew here could be called out at any time. We're hoping for no emergencies, but just in case, a heads up. Ahead, we are going to be showing you how tattooing has been part of the healing process for some first responders. But first, we want to discuss how our local first responders are doing 5 years after 1 October. And joining me for that discussion are Tiffany Oba with the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center, Travis Haldeman, a county fire engineer and a 1 October survivor, and Steve Ryback, director of Metro's Police Employee Assistance Program. Thank you all for joining us today and taking the time. Travis, you were off duty at the concert with your wife at the time. When the shots were fired, you jumped into action and began saving lives. How are you doing 5 years after?
I think I'm doing a lot better than I was. I certainly struggled there for the weeks and months post October 1. I feel like I probably still have a little ways to go. I know I wouldn't be in the spot I'm in today if it wasn't for my friends and family, my wife especially, who stepped up tremendously and seeking out the therapists and the counseling that I received over the course of the last 5 years. That they definitely deserve the credit for getting me where I am today.
In what ways were you struggling after 1 October?
Right after the event, I really felt guilty that I didn't do more that night. I felt a sense of shame. I made a couple of mistakes. I'm very fortunate to have helped the people that I got to help out, and I hope that I had a positive impact on their lives since. But really that should have done more feeling was probably the hardest to overcome.
I want to get back to that, but Steve, you were a sergeant at the time within Metro. What was your role in the response to 1 October, and how are you doing 5 years later?
So 5 years ago, I was overseeing an investigative squad, and so we were tasked to go with myself and 5 of my detectives to one of the local hospitals. We interviewed the survivors that were there. We had to identify the victims that were there, the several deaths, and overall, I think I'm doing pretty well. I mean, it's being in this role that I'm in right now, overseeing our peer support program. It has its therapeutic values where you get to help people, but you also have to walk the walk and talk the talk, and so making sure that I'm okay and I'm doing well physically, mentally is an important component and one that I take very, very seriously.
Travis, I was surprised to hear that you felt guilt. Why?
58 people lost their lives that night, and I felt like I was responsible for that number being that high. I felt like had I done more, maybe made a different decision, that number would have been less. And so seeing that number, and it was everywhere, really made me feel guilty for allowing it to get that high. And it was through a lot of therapy and conversations between my wife and I that I realized, I wasn't responsible. I'm not the one that did that terrible thing that day, which sounds so silly to say out loud, because obviously, but that breakthrough moment, I had really was a 1-2 punch with the help that I received through therapy and the conversations that I was able to have with my wife.
Tiffany, what is your role with the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center, and what kind of issues have you found first responders dealing with in the aftermath?
So my role is Responder Wellness Coordinator. So I help coordinate mental health services for our first responders and their families. And my responsibility is just to let them know the services and the resources that are available to them, to their families, significant others, and make them known and let them know that it's okay to ask for help, it's okay to come to me, it's okay to seek services, there's no judgment here, and it's a place where you can come and get the things that you need.
And what are you hearing from first responders? What are they dealing with? In terms of 1 October, your position was created after 1 October
Yes.
because of it.
Yes, my position was created after the 1 October tragedy. And some of the things that I do hear, like Travis said, is some of the guilt, some of the, I wish I could have done something, I wish I would have done something differently, and a lot of depression, PTSD. It still affects the first responders even today.
Why is 5 years significant, the 5-year mark? Steve?
From our police perspective and the PTSD, the 5-year mark is significant to us because we've learned from several studies, or one specifically, that PTSD can manifest itself sometimes after that 5-year mark, and sometimes in the window of a 5 to 7 year mark. And so we just literally surpassed that 5-year mark. And so we're concerned from an agency perspective that our employees are okay and that their physical and mental well-being is being taken care of. We had almost 1,000 employees in some way, shape, or form that were involved in 1 October. And so we're an agency of almost 6,000 employees, so it's quite a big number, and almost 20% of our agency was involved. So we want to make sure that we're doing our part and doing our best in order to get anybody affected by it the help and the care that they need.
How has Metro gotten ahead of this 5-year mark?
So I'd like to think we're doing our best to get ahead of it. We're doing our best in terms of building resiliency, educating. Having programs like this, or getting the word out with the Resiliency Center, or Travis coming forward and explaining their experiences, and with therapy, and that there's resources and that the help is available. That is something that we all piggyback, and we want the best for our employees. And so in presenting these options, and in my position as with peer support, we're able to let people know you're not the only person. You're not an individual in this. There's many people that were affected, and I know there's a brotherhood and a sisterhood in law enforcement, as with all first responders. And so we have this duty and obligation to look after each other.
Tiffany, you had mentioned no judgment when you are interacting with first responders. What is the judgment that first responders think they may face?
So there's a lot of stigma that comes from the first responder community that if I ask for help, I'm going to get judged. People are going to think that I'm not able to do my job. They feel that they're going to get talked about. People are going to know everything that's going on with them in their personal life, which is not true. So it's my responsibility to help take down some of those barriers and let them know it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to get help for you and for your family.
How prevalent is that stigma, Travis?
Yeah, it's definitely there. Speaking for myself, it's something I struggled with. I remember feeling like I don't want this to affect me. Like, I want to be that strong person that let this roll off my back. Obviously that wasn't the case, and it's not the case for almost anyone that was there. I think that self-identifying some of those problems was really big for me. Not all of us have that pleasure, and so I think listening to our loved ones, our family members, our coworkers, our crew, when they say, "Hey, I think it might be time that you go talk to someone, a professional about this," then I think it's our responsibility to do something about it. We hear oftentimes, it's not okay. It's okay to not be okay. And to take that one step further, I don't know if you feel that way, it's not okay to not do anything about it. And so taking that first step, the Vegas Resiliency Center is really a great launching pad for that first step. They'll provide you the resources and kind of organize things a bit for you. Make sure that you're connecting with the right individual too for you.
Steve.
I think Travis hit a very good point of, it's not okay to do nothing. And so there are real world consequences for doing nothing. And as Tiffany talked about with some of the repercussions, from the job side of it, within Metro, we're really good at getting people the help that they need, and then getting them back to work in their positions that they were in. They don't get the repercussions. They're not given, wooden guns and, rubber guns and put in the back, to file paperwork or, menial tasks. they're out there and have that ability to promote and do whatever it is they were doing, because the sole focus is to get them back to work. But when we don't go out there and take care of ourselves and we try to just pack it in and compartmentalize it and handle it on our own, then unfortunately, a terrible statistic is that more officers kill themselves by taking their own lives than they get killed in the line of duty. And it's a disgusting statistic, but it speaks to the problem of not getting the help that you need. And so also there's statistics that show that the average police officer lives almost 22 years less than the average human being. And it's disgusting. You spend a whole career, and I'm sure it's with all first responders. It's not just something unique to police officers, but this specific study that I'm aware of speaks directly to law enforcement. And it's, we have to take better care of ourselves, because you shouldn't go through a career where you take that oath, you raise your right hand, you want to protect people and take care of people, but yet you're not taking care of yourself. And it's terribly unfortunate, and we have to drive that number lower and lower to get us close to the average age of anybody else.
Travis, I think you said 13 years in the fire department.
Yes, ma'am.
What have you learned about how prevalent or not prevalent suicide is among firefighters?
It's just like Steve said over here, more firefighters die every year than die in the line of duty, that get killed in the line of duty. And so we do a lot to prevent us from being injured, critically or not, on a fire, right? We wear our PPE, we're wearing our SCBAs inside of fires, our medical gloves when we're running medical calls. And that's all to prevent physical trauma from happening to any of us. We aren't doing enough to prevent that emotional and mental trauma that happens. And it may not seem like it's happening on every critical call, but it's that constant drip throughout a 30-year career. I think that can really sneak up on you. I gotta say, we're much better in the short 13 years I've been on this department than we were from when I came on. It's a lot more normal for someone to say that they're seeking out help or going to therapy, talking to other people. We have this peer support team in place now that can really push out the resources that we feel the person may need or the person's asking for. There's a lot more out there for first responders than there was some time ago. And so there's no excuse to not take care of yourself, both physically and mentally.
Any ideas on what more can be done to help our first responders?
I think just getting the word out there and letting them know that we do have the resources for you, the community cares about you, and we want you to be okay. It's the first responders take so much on their shoulders because they are trying to help everyone, saving lives, taking care of their families, but it's okay to take care of yourself first. It's okay to reach out and get the services and the resources that we are trying to provide for you. And I want to be able to help take down that stigma and that break down that barrier that if I ask for help, I'm going to be judged or I'm not going to be presumed to be okay, because it's not true.
It's not true. I mean, there aren't repercussions for notifying someone, hey, I need help. Steve, could you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly are repercussions. We're in PEEP for Metro, we're a confidential unit with two exceptions. If somebody is committing a crime, we'll break confidentiality. If somebody's a danger to themselves or others, we'll break confidentiality for that. So, I mean, but the repercussions are we don't want our employees to fall victim to suicide or to drug addiction, alcoholism, any of the residual effects that affect that almost 22-year less lifespan. We have to educate, and it's programs like this, and it's Travis coming out and explaining this to everybody that look at me, and I think it's very commendable. It's very brave to step out from the shadows, and because we are, as first responders, we're a very insular group at times. We're very welcoming to each other, but when we see others, I believe, that are going out there and getting the help, it's only going to motivate and inspire other people. And so it's great what you're doing. It's much appreciated.
I feel like it's the easiest risk-benefit analysis you're ever going to do. You're risking an hour of your day to go talk to a professional, right? And that's going to do one of two things. It has a small chance of not doing anything for you, right? Or it has this tremendous chance of helping you and getting you on the right path of emotional and mental well-being. And that benefits you not only at your job, but that makes you a better parent, a better spouse, a better brother, sister, whatever, right? It makes you throughout your life, with not including your career, it makes you this better person. And so to me, it's just a no-brainer, right? And there's a lot of benefit in that professional seeing you if you're not at your worst. There's a lot of benefit of them seeing you that way, so they have a baseline for you for when that call happens or when that incident comes. Then they know what you're like normally. Then they know how bad off you really are right now.
Something special about the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center and what you do deals with who you connect first responders to. What are you looking for in a therapist, for example?
I think we're looking for therapists and clinicians who are culturally competent. And that means finding a clinician that understands what it means to be a first responder. They understand the lingo, they understand the lifestyle, they understand some of the difficult things that first responders see on a daily basis. And being able to connect the two, I think it's huge, because when you go to therapy, you want to go to someone that you feel comfortable with. You want to go to someone that you feel like understands the things that you're saying and the things that you're going through. So the Resiliency Center takes great effort into finding, like I said, culturally competent responder or clinicians to match the responders with.
Earlier you mentioned family. What role does family play in all of this?
Family plays a huge role in this. My husband is a first responder, so I definitely know what it feels like to be that significant other, kind of picking up the slack of your first responder, understanding that sometimes they don't want to talk, sometimes they're not going to open up, and being able to kind of gently nudge them to get the help that they need, that they may not recognize in themselves.
And you can recognize that as a spouse, for example.
You can definitely recognize that as a spouse, yes.
Did you find that with your wife, Travis?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for my wife. She intervened at some really critical moments there in the weeks and months post-October 1. And without her, I don't know where I'd be today.
How are our first responders doing in Southern Nevada 5 years after 1 October? I know it's a difficult question. You don't know all of them. Where can we begin, though? Steve.
And I think we're making inroads. I'd like to think we could do better. We could do more. We could always do better and always do more. So it's just continuing to chip away. One employee at a time, one person that we're able to affect positively and help out at a time. But it's very difficult to quantify because we are, Tiffany hit it with like the stigmas, and it's, we are, as from the police side, we are the ones who are looked upon as, when you need help as a community, we're the person you call. And so it's difficult at times to say, you know what, okay, now I need to make the call to somebody else to get some help. So it's truly difficult to know, but I think we're getting better and we're chipping away. It's the best
Tiffany,
answer.
what do you think?
I think it's getting better. Definitely not perfect, but I do see a shift. I do see a change. I do see more people willing to talk about how they're feeling and ask for the help.
What more can be done, Travis?
I think our department has really stepped up to the plate. I think they're helping out the peer support team. Our union and our management are working together really to get us out and into the stations and talking to people. I think something that we could do on an individual level is sharing some of these experiences with our crew, talking. It sucks, I'll be honest. Sometimes it's hard to be vulnerable, especially with the people you care most about. But I think that is how we can really have one of the biggest impacts, on our community.
Tiffany, Travis, Steve, thank you all for taking the time today and sharing your insight.